chance to get some of your questions answered. Thank you, Margot. Get some of your questions answered by the alumni joining us here today. For any of you that I haven't had a chance to connect with, my name is Rebecca Chodum. I'm the program manager, which means I'm here to support you, as you can tell, from now until the end of your program. And then, of course, when you're alumni, you get emails from me asking you to come to coffee chats just like this. So our agenda is pretty straightforward. I'll start by introducing the alumni and staff that are here with us today. And then we'll get into the alumni panel where I will ask the alumni some questions and then of course give you lots of time to ask your questions. And then after that, we're going to move into breakout rooms where we have some questions provided to help you get to know each other a little better. And then that's it. That'll wrap us up for the hour. Any questions? You can use the raise hand feature if you have anything. Okay, awesome. And I appreciate that most of you have your cameras on and mics off. That's perfect. Thank you. So I'll start with our introductions. So all of our alumni that are joining us here today are from last year's cohort. So they just finished in December. They're the MMDD class of 2021 who will graduate in May. We have Brianne Kwong, if you want to give a little wave. We have Kushal Mohi and Lizanne Musico, who is our VP Health and Wellness of the MMDD Student Society. So if you do have any specific questions related to what it was like to be on the Student Society, while also in the program, Lizanne will be your person to answer those questions. And then I think we have quite a few staff with us as well. Staff are almost outnumbering students. So we have Margot Fraser, who is the Senior Program Assistant. You've likely already heard from or encountered Margot over Zoom. We have Dharm Joshi, our Director of Specialty Master's Programs here at the RHL. We have Logan Lorenz, who is in his, I think, second week of work, but he's your MMDD Career Manager. So you'll get a chance to get to know him over the course of the program. And then we have Pam Nansen, who is the Associate Director for Specialty Masters at the Business Career Center. So lots of us joining us, everyone joining you here today. So it's nice to see you all. Thank you for being here. All right, so I will get into the alumni panel questions now. So Kushal, Brianne, and Lizanne, you don't all have to answer each question, but if you do have an answer that you think would be relevant to the students, please feel free to share. And you can just sort of dive in, just unmute yourself, start talking. If one of you gets interrupted, you can just politely pass it off to whoever wants to go first. All right, first question. What was the best aspect of the program for you?
All right, I'll just go ahead. Well, really glad to be here. Thank you, Rebecca, and everyone. I think for me, the most important thing was kind of that sense of community we built with the cohort. I did not have that as much during undergrad. Like we got to know different people from different classes, faculties, but it was a really different experience in that we were all in it together. And at first they used to tell us to kind of like support each other. And I was really curious of what would that mean. But really, as it went through, everyone was here for each other. We're all trying to fight for the same things. And that's something that I found pretty cool about it.
Yeah, I think I'd add on to that, Kushal. Exactly the same thing, is that community was just amazing. It took us a little bit of time to figure out how to do that in an online setting because you're not getting that in-person experience. And I don't know if you guys will get to experience that. And if you do, then that's fantastic. But until that point, we found that using Slack was a really great way to build that community. Yeah, and definitely lean on each other, share experiences, post jokes. Humor is a great way to make friends. Memes, always a good hit. And always reach out to your cohort for help. We had a lot of people. Obviously, everyone's from different backgrounds, and so everyone has different strengths. And that really helps when you're, say you're someone with an arts background and you're having troubles with stats or finances or whatever it is. And then you've got these computer scientists that are just like, oh, let me tell you, let me show you how to do this. And it just helps build that community. And it really teaches you how to use your resources to help learn and move yourself forward. So that was really enjoyable for me as well, to see everyone helping one another.
I guess I will also answer it. I agree with Kushal and Lizanne, definitely. And that's one thing, like I highly recommend setting up a Slack group for your cohort, because like that was huge for us, especially when, you know, people were lost. I think it was very reassuring when someone posted in Slack and they're like, I have no idea what's going on. And everyone else is like, yeah, me too. So it's definitely just a great support system. And yeah, like Lizanne said, like lean on your cohort, because, you know, you're all in it together. And that sounds so cliche, but it's true. And you're going through the same things, you're dealing with the same problems, same profs. So definitely like communicate with each other. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone if you're struggling. Then yeah.
Great, thank you. So on that note, you all said that the community was what helped you get through it, but what was the most challenging aspect of the program?
I mean, aside from the fact that we had to learn how to do everything online right from the get-go at the beginning of the pandemic, which was probably it was hard for the students, but also hard for the professors, having to move all of their content online. And it was a big learning curve for both us and the teachers. So we were both kind of in it together, essentially. Everyone's trying to figure it out and figure out how to do this online. Aside from that whole thing, I would say that the hardest thing, this is kind of in a different direction, but not like comparing yourself to others, I guess. This might come in a little bit more at the end of the program, but when you start seeing people applying for jobs or doing different things, getting experience in other places, and you might like feel like, oh, what I'm doing is inadequate, like I'm behind everyone. Everyone goes through that, and everyone gets this sense of like imposter syndrome, where you're like, I'm not as good as everyone else, I'm not doing as much as I should be doing. Honestly, it's not like that at all, and everyone experiences it, and just know that you're not alone in that. But yeah, just reminding yourself that everyone goes at their own pace, you're gonna be fine, everything's gonna be fine. Just take it one day at a time and you'll find your way.
Yeah, to kind of add to that, I really liked what Lizanne just said. Just because sometimes you will feel like you're like out of your depth and you don't really know what's going on. But then someone else will look at you and will be like, well, oh, that one looks like he got it figured out or something like that. So we're all in this, like not exactly sure what's going on, but we all have like one little piece to contribute. And when we look at the whole picture, then it starts to make a lot of sense to everyone. So really that aspect of leaning on each other comes back to help out each other with whatever is going on.
Yeah, I just want to highlight something that Lizanne had said, and that's with the not comparing yourself to other people. One thing for me was just figuring out like the way that I worked with online school, and like going with that. And, you know, maybe other people will need more time to do something, but you don't necessarily need the same amount of time. Like, don't think that you're not putting the same amount of effort in, because you are. You just work in a different way. So I would say, like, you know, stick to what your schedule is, know how you work, and kind of ride that through the program, because that will help you get through. If you're trying to change your work ethic throughout unless, I mean, you're trying to work harder, that's great. But if you're trying to change the way you study, the way you do assignments really quickly through the program, like the program goes by so fast, so it's difficult to make those changes. So I would say just, you know, stick to your best qualities and emphasize on those throughout the program.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's something that we try to stress to students as well. So it's nice to hear that coming from the alumni as well. So you talked about building community via the Slack channel. I'm just curious, what other ways did you use to build community in this online space? What other tools did you have?
We had a few, I mean, this wasn't really a tool, but there was, when it was nice in the summer, there was a few sort of like in-person sessions, obviously socially distanced, but like, you know, we went to the beach, you went to like a park, and I would say make use of those opportunities. Obviously, like, you have to be cautious and stuff, but I think things are supposed to get better. I hope. I don't really know, but yeah, I would definitely say like try to make time for each other outside of school. That was huge for us, I think.
Yeah, and if you can even do like small groups, that was something that we wanted to do as well, but just due to the pandemic and the situation, it was difficult for us to do that. But there was always talk about like, if you can meet up and like certain, say if you live close together, like we had some people that were like all in Calgary. So if they were able to like go meet up together in person, then that's like great. And I know a lot of people in Vancouver. We had like a Vancouver channel in our Slack. So if people were like, oh yeah, like me and so are going up to Whistler. If you want to come for a hike, like join us. So it was good to have, because speaking also from the Student Society perspective, like we tried our best to kind of make events, even though they were online, try to make events that would like build community, but we also really wanted to encourage people to make informal events, so that there was kind of a mix between people doing things like on their own, creating events on their own, but then also these more formal events that the Student Society would make so that people could go to those as well. So it was nice to have that kind of mix, and I think it's really beneficial as well.
Yeah, I think that covers it. I think also to add to that is just about finding creative ways to still keep in touch. There's always someone around who's into the same thing that you are. So kind of, if that means playing games online, if that means watching a movie online, if that means, as Lizanne and Brianne said, trying to find like safe ways to see each other in person, it's whatever works.
Great, thank you. And I think there will be a lot of opportunities as the alumni are sharing, both in terms of online and in-person events that both your classmates are planning, the school is planning, the student society is planning. So there will be a lot of opportunity and you won't be able to attend everything, but do put in the effort, as you clearly are already doing, to attend some of them and to start building that community, because like our alumni are sharing with you, it'll make a huge, huge difference for how you feel throughout the program. All right, next question. What was your biggest fear before you started the MMDD program, and how did you overcome it once you started the program?
Mine was, and this is kind of something that we've like a general theme, but I was so afraid that we just weren't going to become friends, like my cohort and I was like, oh my gosh, like we're going to be online. No one's going to want to talk to me. Like it's going to be, super separated and everyone's going to be kind of in it on their own. But one thing that, I mean, it was sort of a group effort, but one thing that I did was I really pushed myself to reach out to people that I wouldn't necessarily have spoken to, or, we were separated into different classes, so I wasn't always seeing everyone, and like reaching out to people that you didn't necessarily interact with on a daily basis. I think that was huge. Another thing that helped us, and this is with Slack as well, but we had Donut, which is sort of an integration into Slack, and it pairs you up with random people. And at first it was a little awkward because you're paired up with someone that you've never met before, and you don't really know if you have anything in common. But some people that I met through Donut, I was like, wow, we have so much in common, and I probably wouldn't have known this unless I, really put in an effort. So yeah, that was my fear going into it. But alas, we all became really good friends. So
Yeah, I agree with Brianne. Definitely. That was something that I was worried about too, especially because I didn't join the program until my third year. So I came in late to the program. And I was like, I don't know. All these people have had classes together for the last 4 years. And here I am. I've only met a couple of them. So I was really worried about that as well. I think to go off of the Slack and the donut thing and reaching out and kind of pushing yourself, like I really pushed myself to try being on the student society. It's something that I've never done before. In my undergrad, I was on the varsity women's soccer team, so I didn't have time to like join clubs or get involved in like my actual program, which I always really regretted. So I really wanted to push myself and kind of do something that would get me a little bit more involved and kind of force me to talk to people instead of just like being like, no, you're going to talk to people. Like it forced me to really like get my hands dirty, get involved, and like meet all these people, which was fantastic. And I absolutely loved it. And the student society team, like I got super close with them and got to meet them and know them really well. And that was honestly such a blessing. But I would also say that my other biggest thing that I was worried about was the like workload, because it is a accelerated program, right? And you have like all of these classes for such a short amount of time, and you're just like, how am I going to learn all of this in 3 weeks? Like it kind of stressed me out a little bit just thinking about it. And like really what you have to do is take it one day at a time. That's really all you can do. Don't stress yourself out by being like, we have finals in 1 week and we haven't covered like how many chapters yet and we have to learn it all before then. Just breathe. You're, like I said before, you're gonna be fine. Don't freak yourself out. Just take it one day at a time and reach out to your fellow cohort members for support if you don't know how to do something, because there's guaranteed to be someone else in the program that finds this really easy but something else really hard that you know how to do. So it's just that give and take, reaching out to people and taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, completely agree with Brianne and Lizanne. Just to provide another perspective, though, something I was a little worried about was kind of really how to interact with both people from the cohort, but also people from the MM team and everyone. I was worried that it wouldn't be organic, and I was like, how am I even gonna make that work? But in the end, it's just about like giving it a try. Like Pam knows how many headaches I gave her over the program. But it's just about like at first it feels really weird, but soon you get used to it. And I think that this kind of thing of interacting online is the thing that we need going into the future. So it's just getting prepped for it, which is a bonus.
Yeah, that's a nice addition, Kushal. The instructors are also very eager to get to know you and to support you. So, you know, making those introductions and forming connections with your instructors will also help you in the courses. So don't be shy to do that. My next question is just for Lizanne. Sorry, Kushal and Brianne, but I was hoping you could talk a little bit about your experience on the Student Society, basically what your role was, how you were able to fit that into your school schedule and your personal life, and what you learned from it.
Yeah, for sure. So my position on the Student Society was for the, wow, I'm blanking now, VP of Health and Wellness. Hasn't even been that long, but oh well. So my role as VP Health and Wellness was basically to ensure that everyone had opportunities to maintain and benefit their health and wellness, both physical, mental, and emotional. So that included creating events where people were able to get away from Zoom for a little bit. When you're on the screen for 8 hours a day and sitting at your desk, it's takes quite a toll on the body. So just making sure that people had opportunities to get up and move. We did some yoga, we did some Zumba. It was honestly a great time for all the people that were able to make it out. But again, like it was difficult because due to being on Zoom for so long and trying to plan events that were also online, it was kind of hard to get people to come out sometimes to these events because they were just like, no, like I've had enough screen time for today. I just am not up for it at all. Yeah, and like Pam said in the chat, our managing stress workshop, which was honestly a great event. We had Dr. Pawa come in. She's one of the doctors that opened the West Coast Women's Clinic, and she was able to talk to us about adrenal fatigue and stress and like high cortisol levels, and especially during the pandemic, as we've seen, like people's mental health has taken such a toll, and being able to find ways that help you reduce those stress levels that works for you specifically, and also realizing that other people in your cohort are experiencing the same thing. It was a really great event and an eye-opening event, I think, for a lot of the members. So just being able to create events like that. We had weekly meetings with the team. We had our president, internal affairs. I don't know if you guys have like chosen your society or if you've gone over all the roles yet, but yeah, we had our president, internal VP, career affairs, finance, events team, and then me, health and wellness. So it was a really good way to get to know a lot of people in the cohort and also push yourself to come up with creative ways to benefit your cohort outside of just school activities. Balancing it on top of your workload is honestly, it's hard, but it's manageable and it's rewarding as well. So you get to, like I said, meet lots of people. You get to help improve the well-being and the just general mood of the entire cohort. So it's a very rewarding way to get additional experience. And obviously you can put that when you're applying for a job after. Like I said before, like I was an athlete in my undergrad, so I didn't get a lot of opportunity to get real world experience and join clubs. And I worked part-time, but it was at a restaurant and it was only like once or twice a week. So I really didn't have that much experience. And I really wanted to like build out my resume on top of my schoolwork. And so that gave me the opportunity to do that, connect with professionals in the real world, and just kind of get that real world management experience along with my education. So for those reasons, I'm so glad that I did it. And yeah, if you think it's right for you, I highly recommend it.
And you did a great job. Thank you, Lizanne.
Oh, thanks, Rebecca. I miss seeing you. I miss seeing everyone.
As well, I know, I miss seeing all of you.
Yeah.
So I have one last question, and then we'll open it up to the MMDD students joining us today. And it's just, if you had one last piece of advice to share with these students as they're preparing for the program start in June, what would it be?
I think my advice would just be to kind of jump into it and experience the whole thing. It's going to be challenging at some times. It's going to be some things you won't want to do, but give it a try, especially if you haven't done that kind of thing before, and try to make the most of it, because there's going to be pros and cons to the whole online thing. But honestly, there were some pros of the online thing that I personally found pretty cool. To some extent, I think that I was able to like interact with people in the end more easily online. It took less time for us to become closer because we were all kind of trapped into it together. Well, trapped between quotes. So yeah, just jump into it and make the most of the experience.
I want to add on to what Kushal said really, really quickly. Because we were in an online setting and we were in a Slack channel or a Slack page with the entire cohort, I think, like he said, it was easier to get to know everyone in the cohort, because in classrooms, you'll be sitting and you'll kind of sit around the same people all the time. And so you don't know who's on the other side of the room. And you never really talk to them or get to meet them or like understand their sense of humor. Whereas in the online format, you're essentially sitting beside everyone at all times. So you get to know everyone and talk to everyone much more easily than if you were in a classroom and you're just sitting around the same 4 people all the time. So I just wanted to add that in, that it's really take advantage of that, because it's a great way to get to know everyone instead of just a small group of people.
My advice would be, I have 2 pieces of advice. One of them is keep your video on and ask questions, because that really helps you stay engaged, because it's difficult when you're online to, want to do other things and lose focus. But, if you have your video on and you're asking questions and there's this sense of accountability. So that's what I did. I was very like, that's how I stayed engaged, just like keep asking questions. And then, yeah, the video thing too. And then the next one is take naps during the day, because it's exhausting to be on your computer all day long and, going through things super quickly. And if you're tired, take a nap, because I didn't really nap in my undergrad. And then we hit MM and I was like, you know what, 20-minute power nap. And then I was good to go for the rest of the day. So that's what I do. Oh, and last piece, sorry, there's 3 pieces now. But the program goes by so quickly. So I would say just, really enjoy it and put yourself out there, take risks. Don't freak out during the program because it's going so fast, or because maybe you don't feel like you know what you're doing, but we all got through it. You all will get through it. And yeah, you'll look back and I mean, I'm missing MM right now a lot too. So I'm sure you'll feel the same way.
Yeah, I agree, Pam. It's all really beautiful advice. Thank you so much for sharing. So now we'll give the students a chance to ask questions. As I said before, you can just use the raised hand feature, and then I'll call on you to ask your question. If it's directed at a specific alumni or the whole group, just let us know. All right, Tiffany, go ahead.
Hello. Thank you so much for all of the helpful advice and insight you guys are providing. I'm curious about job hunting in terms of how you balance the workload between, the program's only 6 months, so you're also actively looking for a job afterwards, and how you balanced looking for a job while also doing coursework and things like that.
Yeah, if I can say something about that is really look at what the best you can be doing at that point. So you will see during the time, some people in the cohort will be going really hard at it. Some other people will be managing other stuff at the same time, so they'll go a bit easier on it. So just look at what's working for you. And on top of that, it's just about like, you're just trying to reach out to people. You'll be taught a lot of things on how to do it. And remember that these things are things that you want to carry with you like forevermore in the future. So sometimes I would be caught up in it. I'll be like, I can't apply the thing I just learned, so I just can't do it. So maybe I should toss it aside. But that's not true. I might not be able to do it right now, but there will be a moment where I can apply these things. So just remember that these things will be reoccurring. All the things you'll be learning, career development, or just courses in general. So just keep that in mind, and don't be too stressed out if you see that it's not panning out too early, or there's no such thing as late or anything at this point. It's just about trying.
Can I add something to that, Rebecca? Yeah, Kushal has great advice. Do what you can do. Do what works for you. At the very beginning of the journey, we say you're all on your own unique career path. Some will start hitting the job scene early, others will wait. And the most important thing is that's natural, that's normal. Everybody will move at their own pace. And at the end of the day, everybody will land a job, right? Just do what you can manage, and we're here for you to support you on your own unique career journey. And that's the thing to take away with you. We'll work with you at your pace. The skills that we teach you are used for life. They're not just to help you land your first career job. They're to help you get that next promotion or the next job or the second act, whatever it may be. And these are the skills that you'll just keep coming back to. And it kind of is like a jigsaw puzzle. It will all piece together in the end. Just be patient and kind to yourselves.
Yeah, I think that kindness to yourself is really important throughout the program. So just keep that in the back of your mind at all times. Andrew, I see you're our next hand. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for spending your time to talk to us today and teaching us like lots of stuff here. I have one question. Was it easier or more difficult to reach instructors outside of class hours in the online setting?
I would say a little bit of both. So it's easier to reach out to them because they are more active on the online setting. So they'll probably respond to your messages on email or on Canvas a lot quicker. The downside is that it's harder to get feedback in general, just because sometimes if you wanted to go, like, say you wanted to go talk to a professor about your grade, and like often if you were in class, then you could just go up after class and talk to them about it if it's just something like quick that you wanted to go over a concept that you didn't fully understand or whatever. Whereas in the online setting, it's harder. You can't just go up to them after class because you're usually running off to your next class, or the professor's asking you to just like book a separate time during their office hours, but sometimes their office hours are during one of your other classes. And so you have to kind of work around and schedule a time to either see them on video chat. And then it's never just a quick thing, you end up talking to them for however long during this video call. So there's some barriers in that sense where it's like you kind of have to plan out what you're asking them, because you don't want to waste their time either. So if you're going to talk to them one-on-one and get some clarification on concepts, it's easier to reach them because they're more active online, but it's harder to just have like little conversations with them. It kind of has to be planned out. Or if you want just like to ask a question, then you would probably just email them the question, and then you might not get as in-depth an answer as you want, as you would have been able to get if you were talking to them in person. So in that way, it's a kind of a little bit of give and take.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
Sorry, still figuring out how to use my new computer. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and for the really like helpful advice. My question is more so on like how were your stress levels throughout the program, and like were you able to like were you only doing the program itself? You weren't doing anything else on the side except for Lizanne. I guess she was VP of health and wellness, but yeah, how hard was it like to kind of like juggle multiple things at a time? And did you have mental breakdowns, or like what was it like?
I can answer this. I would say my stress level personally, it fluctuated a lot throughout the program. Like some terms are going to be a lot heavier than other terms. Some classes will be a lot heavier, even like week to week, it changes. I know there was quite a few people in the program that did manage to have jobs or were volunteering on the side. Like it's definitely doable. I think that's just something that you need to assess for yourself. If you know that you are able to manage that, then I would say go for it. But if you know that maybe you're a bit of a more anxious person or dealing with higher levels of stress, like don't put this pressure on yourself to feel the need to do all of these things at once, because it is a pretty heavy program, and there are going to be times where the workload is a lot heavier. So yeah, I don't know. It's not a very specific answer, but it definitely changes as weeks go by. And once you get to the end of the program, I think you start to realize that there's certain times where you were like, I was on the breaking point, I was about to cry. But yeah, I don't know, it definitely changes week to week. So
Yeah, I can add to that. We definitely don't encourage students to take on additional work and on top of the program, because the program is so intense, and it can conflict with your group meetings with your classmates or events held by the BCC, and it just holds you back sometimes. But we also know that some people need to work for financial reasons, and obviously we're not going to say no to that. So just being aware, like Brianne said, of your own capacity, your own ways of working, and just if it's the right fit for you, absolutely. But yeah, just be clear with what you can handle, and don't stretch yourself too thin. Nicole, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate all the empowering. You're going to be fine, and it's going to turn out okay. I was just wondering, so I'm really looking forward to having the same schedule as everyone else, kind of like what you were saying, Kushal. And I was wondering what the lunch blocks look like, because this is going to be the first time, at least for me, that I'm going to be around people who are maybe waiting 2 hours before their next class. We're all in this together. So I was wondering for your cohort, were people mostly just doing things on their own, like maybe studying or previewing for the next class, or did people kind of have like little lunch groups and study groups going on?
So I think it got a little more structured than that. I feel like after doing a lot of classes, especially some classes that were back to back, we all kind of, a lot of people kind of needed some me time kind of situation. So then we mostly took that lunchtime to be the time where you go to do your own thing. But that doesn't mean that people did not host other kind of informal little things during the day. Maybe let's study together for an hour over Zoom or something. So there was a little bit of both, but it was not like, I can't imagine that in person, we would have been together in the same place, and during lunchtime, you would have just like networked, I guess. But there was still a little bit of it, but just not in the traditional sense.
Yeah, when I first heard this question, the first thing I thought of was in between classes, if I had 10 minutes, I would just go lie in bed just for that 10 minutes, just have a little me time, just lie down for 10 minutes and just kind of reset myself and prepare myself for the next class. And that's something that I just needed to help me like get through and be like lower my stress levels and just take a little bit of time by myself. But that's not to say, as Kashal said, like we would have some people host informal like tutorials basically, especially for programming, because we've got some people that clearly are very good at that and some people that had no idea what was going on. So it was very helpful to have those kind of informal sessions. And one thing that we haven't really touched on is the amount of meetings that you're going to be having outside of your set class times. So there's a lot of group work, and like you're just going to want to like work with some things with other people, like the stats assignments. I think me and one of my friends would be on Zoom for 5+ hours, 6+ hours in a day, just working through this assignment because it was just so hefty and it was just much better to do it with a person. So outside of your class times, you're going to have tons of meetings to schedule with group members, partners, doing this, doing that. So during lunch times, it is important to just have a little bit of time for yourself. I think you don't want to like push yourself too hard because yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of people for meetings and group work. So just keep that in mind as well when you're kind of planning how you're going to approach this, is that factor that into your days as you're going to be scheduling a lot of meetings as well.
All right, Tiana, I think you're next.
Thanks. I had a couple of questions. My first one is, I was wondering where y'all are now after the MM. Maybe I'll just like list my questions and you can like scatter them among y'all. But yes, and you also spoke about helping each other out. So that gives me the impression that it's a really supportive environment. I just wanted to double check like what the environment is like. Like, is it super competitive? Is it super supportive? I know in my undergrad, like all of us really do look out for each other. And I'm hoping to get the same as well in the MM program. And lastly, have you stayed connected with like individuals in your program and from your cohort? That's something that I'm really curious about as well. And thank you in advance for answering the questions.
Okay, I can answer a couple of those. So the last question, yes, I am still in contact with people from the cohort. I'm actually going for a walk with 2 girls from the cohort on the weekend. So that's really exciting. And then your first question was about, sorry, what was your first question again? Oh, where we are now. Oh, okay. Well, physically I am in Calgary, but I'm working, if you're like, I don't know if it's is like with work and stuff. Okay, yeah. So I'm working for a health tech startup. And I'm working in the communications department, and the department is just me because it's a startup. And it's not really just communications, it's about everything and anything from like marketing materials, web development, learning a little bit of the programming, and then doing random little side tasks here and there. So it's very all over the place, but that's kind of the startup lifestyle, which if any of you are interested in that, I'd love to talk to you about it. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I guess I'll let Lisanne and Kashal answer some of the other questions.
Yeah. So just to answer the second question, I think that was Tiana. How we like the cohort experience and how we supported each other. I think it'll be very dependent on your cohort, fortunately or unfortunately. We've heard at the beginning of our program about like stories about how some other cohorts were not necessarily super like in jail or stuff like that. So I think this is just a call to action for each and everyone to kind of be vulnerable, be present, be sensitive to the things around you. Like when you see someone who needs help, like help them out. If you need help, reach out because people might not know. So there's definitely the potential for it to be like a really, really nice experience for sure. And to answer the first question, okay, I don't remember which ones were which, but I'm in Burnaby right now, and so still in Vancouver-ish, interning for a tech startup and just doing their kind of business analyst / data analyst kind of thing, and it's been going okay. And your last question, I believe, yes, still in touch with some people. And I think our Slack channel is still on, right? So there's that too. I hope it stays on. But yeah, I'll let Lizanne add something if she wants to.
Yeah, I'll go in order. So right now I am living with my parents because of the pandemic. Working from home. I'm working for also they're a tech healthcare tech startup. They're moving out of the moving out of the startup phases. They actually they were partially acquired by TELUS Health before, and now they're fully acquired. So we're going to be shifting into being full-time TELUS employees in January. It's called Babylon by TELUS Health. I don't know if you've seen any of the adverts or anything, but I'm working in operations. So I'm basically just making sure that all of the technical processes are working smoothly. I work kind of also as like a medical office assistant. So I'm handling a lot of patient data, making sure it's going to the right doctors, making sure prescriptions are getting filled properly, but also being like tech support and helping people who are having issues with that. So it's just kind of a whole bunch of different little things that just ensure that the whole process is moving smoothly. And we are also hiring. So if you have any interest in the healthcare space and want to talk, I'd be more than happy to connect with you about that. Second question, Kashal pretty much answered it to a T. It really depends on the cohort. We were very lucky with the people that we had in ours, and I'm sure the MM team does a great job of picking their people. So I'm sure you guys have the same potential to have a great experience with everyone there. And it's just really what you make it to be. And then the last one, yes, still in contact. I wish that I have done more to see people. I'm hoping as soon as things start opening up and those vaccine rollouts get going, we're able to see more people. But like I said, it's very busy once you graduate and you're like starting your job and everything. So it can be a very like busy time for everyone. So it's, if you can, try to stay connected. We have the Slack channel as well as a Facebook channel, I think. Obviously everyone's super busy right now. So hopefully in the summertime, we'll see a little bit more action in there and we can reconnect. But yeah.
Great, thank you. Kirkland, I think you had your hand up next.
Hi everyone, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. And I had a question about our scheduling. So recently our schedule was released and it says that every day we have 2 blocks reserved for academic programming. And I was wondering if any of you would be able to like speak to this and tell us what it entails.
So I can actually jump in and cover that one. The alumni have sort of touched on this already, but for the most part, there won't be things scheduled during that time. Like you won't have classes in that time, but there might be a workshop or a tutorial, but it's more so the time you can expect to be working on group projects or even on your own individual homework. So it's really to give you a sense of how much time you'll be working on schoolwork as opposed to in class, if that makes sense. So you should reserve that time because you will likely be using it, but not necessarily in class or on directly related to coursework, if that makes sense. Awesome. Okay, Serena, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. It's really nice to get a snapshot into what the MM program is going to be like. I had a question. I know everyone's coming from different backgrounds, but how did the MM experience compare to undergrad in terms of like workload, free times, etc.?
Yeah, I'll answer this one. I felt very strongly about this question during my MM time. It's quite different. I had a cognitive systems background. So as you'll notice and other people notice, depending on your background, you'll see some things being a bit easier for you than the other subjects. But I think in general, it's mostly different in the sense that, especially for COGS, I felt like in the MM, we did not go in as much depth as we did as in COGS per subject, but it was very high paced. So while in undergrad you would have maybe like a whole week to ponder upon your assignment or something, now you have like 2 days. Same thing for midterms. So it's not necessarily like super in-depth, like you have to figure out the whole thing kind of subject, but it's kind of things that you have to think fast and do fast. And it's just about doing and getting over with it and moving on to something else. That's how it kind of felt like.
For me, so I have a science background, and I found with the a lot of what we learned was definitely more applicable just to life in general, which is something I really, really liked about the program. And then I just felt I was more engaged in the because with science, there's times where I was just, they're talking about research papers and I was falling asleep and I was like, this doesn't mean anything to me, these little cells in your body, whatever. But yeah, with the it's definitely more applicable just to what I wanted to do personally. And again, because it's so fast paced, you are way more engaged. And yeah, the difference would be obviously the class size, because in science you're in these huge classes. So it's something that I really enjoyed because you got to know people more easily.
I think Brianne and Kashal pretty much covered it. I don't really have anything else to add. So if we want to keep going, that's good.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So we have 10 minutes left. We can go into breakout rooms, but we still have a couple hands raised and it seems like there's more appetite for questions. So if we wanted to stay here and do that, you can just give me a little head nod or a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, great. Michaela, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for sharing your perspective. It's really helping bring it into perspective and focus what's coming up, because it's kind of a little abstract right now as we're still finishing undergrad. I was wondering, like, what is your kind of favorite academic memory, whether it's like your favorite class or maybe a favorite project that you worked on, that kind of thing.
I'll start. My favorite, it's not really a specific memory, but some of the professors are absolute gems. And you'll get to realize that they have very interesting personalities, and some of them are just a riot. So you'll have a lot of fun getting to know your professors and these different personalities, for sure.
I have two that I can think of right now. The first one was with the leadership class. Is that what it was called? Yeah. And you do so much sort of introspective looking and reflecting on how you are as a leader. And I think that that was huge for me as someone who doesn't really do a lot of self-reflection very often. After the I was, really assessing how I am as a employee, as a leader, how I was as a student. And I think that's really good to figure out, what your strong skills are and maybe places where you want to work on. That's something that I really liked. Another one that I loved is the creativity class. That was the best class. And you do it at the end of the program, which is kind of like a little nice farewell. You end on a high note. And you do a creativity project. And I think that was so cool for me to see everyone in ways that they wanted to express themselves. So yeah, definitely that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, I'll second that. The creativity class was definitely a very memorable one. And Michaela kind of tied in some COGS concepts into it, which was pretty nice to find.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I can agree that the creativity projects were amazing. And I think what's really fun is you get to see how your classmates surprise you. Like there were, at least for me, obviously I don't know everyone as well as you know each other, but there were some pretty big surprises in those presentations that were really fun. Tiana, go ahead.
Hello. I was wondering, since the program is so intensive, how would you recommend we spend May? So like this 1 month that we have like right before, like should we like ramp up and like really like, hunker down and start studying the concepts and everything and like look at all the resources that they put online? Or do you think that we should just like relax and chill and just like brace for the storm? I was hoping to get your advice on that.
That's a very good. Oh, go ahead, Brianne.
No, go ahead, Kashal.
Very good questions. Yeah, I kind of regret what I did about my May, but yeah, I would say the second thing you said is what I would, if I could redo it, I would do. So like really enjoy May. It's kind of getting into the summer, so like making the most of that. Really spending time with family and stuff if you can do that too. Because once it starts, I'm not saying that it's like super intense and you're like suddenly like your world is shaken or anything, but it does, like, you do get less time to do those things that you could have wanted to do at that point. And given that you just finished school and you're starting again, you do want a little bit of time in between. But I would still like recommend knowing what's coming ahead. So reading the syllabuses just to see what's up. But yeah, so kind of in between the two extremes.
100% agree with Kashal. I was going to say, relax, take some time for yourself, just kind of mentally prep, but also do a little bit of look at the syllabuses, make sure you understand what the courses that are coming up are going to entail. But I wouldn't worry too much about like starting on studying right away. Like give yourself that mental break because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So prep yourself for that.
Yeah, I agree with both Kashal and Lizanne. One thing that I would say, this is more like throughout the program. So definitely, chill in May. It's great. Enjoy your time when you're not really studying. But then once you get into the program, like you have to make that switch mentally right away. There's not going to be this like slow transition time. And I'm not saying that to like scare you guys at all, but it's a quick, ramp up and you get really into things. So always kind of think one step ahead and what's coming up next, just to keep yourself sort of prepared.
Yeah, if I may add one more thing, sorry, Rebecca, is that even though the program is very high paced, like Lizanne said, it is a marathon. Like, I don't think there's one time in the program for me personally, like disclaimer, I did not have any work on the side or anything. But there was never a point where the hardest time in my undergrad was like the hardest time in the did not come near to the hardest time in undergrad. So even though you have to sustain that energy over a long period of time, the absolute peak of it, in my opinion, does not approach that of the undergrad. But we're all going to have different experiences about that. But yeah.
Thank you. So we probably have time for one last question. If anybody has something that they've been holding on to. No? Okay. Well, thank you so much, alumni, for joining us, and also to the incoming students. It's really nice to see all of you and incredible insights shared, like really great questions and really great answers. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I encourage you to connect however you want to, whether on LinkedIn with the alumni, if you want to start your WhatsApp or Slack channel for your cohort. Great thing to get started now to start building the community. And we'll be hosting a few more coffee chats and events coming up. Hopefully we'll get to see you there as well. And everyone, wherever you are, hopefully it's sunny. You can go enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Rebecca.